Okay, at this time, we'll call to order Little Miami Local Schools Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice?
Here.
Mr. Cremines? Here. Mr. Nemish? Here. Mrs. Trene? Absent. Mr. Haas?
Here.
Thank you.
If you all would stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we need a motion to adopt the agenda, including the addendum that we were given.
I'll move.
Mr. Cremines?
I'll say.
Mr. Nemish? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cremines?
Yes.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
Thank you.
This time, we need a motion for the reading of the minutes, May 17th, 2016 regular meeting.
I'll move.
Ms. Grice? Mr. Nemish? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
Mr. Cremines?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, communications to the board. Mr. Power?
Yes, thank you. We have Kim Anderson here tonight to speak about the wrestling program.
Can I have permission to bring two other people with me?
Come on, Kim.
Community behind the leader here. Thank you guys for having us this evening. I'm here, Ms. Irwin, on behalf of.
Is that mic on? I'm not sure everybody.
May not be close enough. I'm here as a parent in the district, specifically of a high school wrestler, but I'm also here as an executive board member of our Little Miami Athletic Boosters. So, we have an issue with our weight room, or with our, with our wrestling room, and it's a space issue. So when they built the school, 16 years ago, I guess now, there was not a weight, or I keep saying weight room, sorry, a wrestling room built at that time. They used the classroom, part-time, classroom, part-time wrestling room, moved the mats. We moved on from that, and now the wrestling room is a full-time wrestling room. But with changes in our program, enrollment, it's booming, and now that room is just not enough. So Kim Anderson here, who's our secretary of our athletic boosters, and Brian McGill, as a parent representative, are going to speak to you more specifically about that. I am here probably more on the side of the athletic boosters to offer, to make this a booster initiative. We've talked about this as a booster board. We would be willing to take this on as we did the weight room. And I think we can all say that that was highly successful.
Yes.
Well done, well executed, not a problem. We would be willing to take this on in that effect. It is nothing near the project that the weight room was. It's much simpler than that. I mean, by 1,000 times, it's much simpler. So we would be willing to spearhead that, call it ours, whatever feels right to the powers that be, to the administration, to Coach Kraft, to the people that are invested in this. We would be willing to do that. The people that are here in attendance tonight are wrestling parents. They're here just to show support so that you guys understand that there's a lot of invested people in this project, invested people in our sport. The sport has probably suffered, in my opinion, more than any sport here in the district. Boys tennis is the only other sport, and that simply was just a lack of interest versus falling apart like wrestling did. We lost youth for 5 years, we lost junior high, but it's coming back, and we want to keep the momentum. The district is moving forward in so many ways, and athletics is in leaps and bounds. So this is one way to continue the growth of the wrestling program. Near and dear to my heart, it's the only sport my son does. He started here down the hall when he was 5 years old. He's always been a Little Miami wrestler until we lost it and we had to leave. And that was really hard. And I don't want that to happen anymore. It's really hard to take the only sport you have away from a kid in his home district. You have to go somewhere else to participate. We don't want to see that happen in the future. The solution difference at all to have the athletic boosters take this on as an initiative. We are willing to do that. So, this is Kim for Brian McGill.
Good evening. My name is Brian McGill. I'm at 6976 Agree Drive. I'm also the parent of a Little Miami High School wrestler. And if you don't mind, I have some numbers I'm going to pass out. But Kim will bring those to you. And I also have a letter here signed by the wrestling parents that are here in support of the program this evening. So I'm just going to go ahead and read from that. On behalf of the parents and students involved with the Little Miami Wrestling Program, we're here today to petition for assistance in gaining additional space for the high school wrestling team to utilize for practice. We all appreciate the ongoing investment the district has made into the athletic program from both a facilities and a personnel standpoint. We have all witnessed the positive impact that athletic participation in general and participation in the wrestling program in particular has had on our children. Wrestling is a demanding sport, and the program, as administered by Coach Kraft, has helped teach many young men the value of discipline and hard work, along with sportsmanship and winning with class. We believe these values will stay with these young men for a lifetime. That being said, with that success comes additional challenges. All of the positive things that the program is doing have created an influx of students who want to be part of the program. Basically, they're doing well, people want to join up. Where high school participation in the wrestling program was near single digits just a few years ago when my son was in junior high, we're now projected to have as many as 30 high school wrestlers this season and potential for 40 on the horizon. More wrestlers will make for a stronger program and more students who get to experience the benefits of participation. But in order for those benefits to be fully realized, we believe that they must be given the necessary physical space. The current wrestling room is too small to accommodate the number of wrestlers projected to participate this year, much less to accommodate any future growth. As a basis for comparison, a survey was conducted with other area high schools, many of them are in our conference, regarding the size of their wrestling practice area in relation to the number of participants. I've given you the actual survey. The bottom line is easily summarized. In terms of both absolute practice area and practice area per students, Little Miami ranks last among schools surveyed by a significant margin. It is our understanding that these results were presented to the Little Miami High School administration, along with a series of steps to expand the area available for wrestling to utilize. It is also our understanding that the plan was denied with no specific reason given for the denial. We are committed to the program and will, as parents and boosters, support any expansion effort with the time and resources that we have. But it's difficult to know how to attack the problem when the nature of the obstacle is obscured. We have not been made aware if the reason for denial was related to budgetary concerns, regulatory issues, building codes, or simply a matter of convenience for the administration. What we do know is that this growing program needs more space. We are already bursting at the seams, and to continue as we have been without providing this space brings a higher risk of our athletes either dropping out of the program because of overcrowding or being seriously injured. Obviously, neither of these outcomes is desirable. Again, we appreciate whatever assistance the board can give in resolving this issue in a timely manner. At the very least, we would like an explanation as to what currently stands in the way of any expansion plan or the plan already presented to the administration. We stand ready to help in whatever way we are able. And here's the letter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Again, my name is Kim Anderson. I'm a parent in the district, and I'm also on the Little Miami Athletic Booster Executive Board. I want to talk to you about two things very quickly. One is the risks involved of using this current space, and then our proposed plan that was denied. The first risk that we run with not creating more space for our wrestling program is losing athletes to other schools. Other schools that have more competitive facilities or simply better, safer conditions is something that is a potential issue. We currently have 5 wrestlers who chose not to go to their clubs that they had to go to when they were shut district was facing fiscal problems. These 5 wrestlers have chosen to come here and help build this program, and we would like them, as well as any future wrestlers, to stay. We also run the risk of losing a very valuable coach in Coach Kraft and Coach Tangeman. They've been phenomenal role models to our sons and have shown much dedication to these young men. Running 2 practices is a burden on them due to the fact that they have families as well as other jobs outside of their coaching responsibilities. And if they don't feel that the safety of their wrestlers is important, then they do not feel supported. The biggest risk that we run is injury. And I can say that I have witnessed this personally. On February 12th, my son Cody, who is an 8th grader, was badly injured in the current wrestling room. Mr. McGill, oh, you left me. I'd like to show you some pictures of his injuries. Cody suffered a dislocated knee, which resulted in the tearing of his ACL, MCL, and LCL. He suffered a blood clot in the artery in the back of his leg, which required a vascular bypass. He has undergone 4 surgeries. Currently he has nerve damage, and it is our hope that he will come back and be able to maintain a normal activity. However, the doctors have said that it was the trauma of this injury, the trauma of the impact that caused the severity. I don't tell you this to place blame upon anyone else, to ask for sympathy, and I can't definitively say that the room size caused this. However, the odds of this happening greatly increase with the smaller space that we are currently using. We are jeopardizing future athlete safety with the continuance of this room. And knowing so and continuing to use this space would be seen by many as a negligent act by the school district. The plan that has been proposed to you is in, and was proposed to the administration, is in your handout. Coach Kraft, along with Ms. Sawyer and other building leaders, had several scenarios that they felt were possible ways to remediate this situation. The one that they felt was the best was taking the current room used by Greg Robinson at the high school and link it to the current wrestling room for practice. You can see on the last page the pros and cons of this plan. All of the cost that is associated with this has been donated or has been offered to be donated. We have a letter of intent stating funds that will be donated for pads for the walls. And as Nikki spoke earlier, the athletic boosters are willing to take on this project, much like we did the weight room. Again, we'd like to thank you for your time, ask for perhaps an explanation as to why our original request was denied, and ask that you think of the safety of our students and athletes. Yes.
I think we got a couple of questions. Go ahead. No, I just didn't.
You would like to see the best possibility for you all would be to take the existing weight room and go into the old, or the wrestling room and go into the old weight room, correct?
Yes.
Okay, if the room was bigger, and I know you have to have mats in the room you have, wall mats, you wouldn't need those in the, I'll go back to the old days, the auxiliary gym, is what I like to call it. You wouldn't need wall mats for practice there, would you?
We would need them in the old weight room.
Are the,
Will we-
yes, I'm moving on from that.
Oh.
If you went to the auxiliary gym and spread the mats out, you wouldn't need wall mats, is that correct? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well,
Mr.
we'd like
Lawrence.
to keep our existing room.
I understand, okay, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I mean, that.
Personally, I like your all's,
Ideally, we.
idea.
I believe,
Myself.
stay where we are.
You wouldn't need wall mats per se, but you would need a lot more actual mat space.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, I don't know a thing about it, that's what I'm asking, okay.
Into the wall mat, but if you're in an open auxiliary gym like that,
You
they're gonna go off the mat.
run the risk of falling on the floor, right, that's what I wanted to know,
In
okay.
addition, that would be moving mats, which is wear and tear, and we're.
Oh,
already
absolutely, I've
have
done it too many
deficiency.
times, exactly. Okay.
Mr. Haas, did you have another question?
Along with what Mr. Kameen's talking about here, there are 4 possible solutions, and first of all, to kind of back up, I don't think the board is aware there was a presentation, or there was an offer extended and turned down. I don't, I'm personally not aware, I don't.
Well, and I will tell you, there was a dialogue with the administrative staff here, and we looked at options, and it wasn't, from my perspective, framed as an offer to, that we were formally going to accept or deny. We had a dialogue at central office district level about what we could do with the increasing numbers, and we looked at the options that actually they have been presented, that they presented the board tonight, and I think I shared some of that information with the board prior to the meeting tonight. There was a dialogue in the context of space and what would make sense in the immediate short term, as we are challenged everywhere with our increased numbers of space across all of our athletic activities as well as our instructional activities. So the district had spent some dollars to set the old weight room up as a music classroom, and we did that last summer. And we had made that investment in that space, and we had gone forward with scheduling, and it's not a matter of simply relocating Mr. Robinson so that he has to set up and break down in the band room for a couple of periods a day, or in the choir room for a period a day. Both Mr. Robinson and our band director, Mrs. Smith, travel to other buildings, so there's a district schedule that is involved on the instructional side, to where we have scheduled them in order to meet other commitments in other buildings related to the music program. So the dynamic of, can we knock the wall down, and can we expand into that space? Well, sure, that could happen. But in the context of looking at what the overall programming is with the district, that room is used multiple times a day to support an instructional elective that is a growing elective for many of our kids.
And didn't you just do, we just did some work in there?
We did that last summer.
electrical?
Yeah, we ran, and we did some things to support moving that program into that space after it was empty, and we moved over to the old shop for the weight room. So in the context of discussion, we were looking at options in the immediate short term, and we were looking at having to look at a couple of the other options to support the wrestling program for next year that they presented to you. So that's the background from my context. We never had any kind of a formal offer or support from the boosters or anything like that. There was a discussion that could be developed and that could be worked, and that the materials could possibly be donated. But in looking at, this came to us at our SAT meeting in May, which was, I think, the second week in May. And we had a discussion, and we did some thought about it. Initially, it looked like maybe, but as we looked at how that would impact our music scheduling and the staff associated with that, it didn't look like that was something I was willing to turn upside down and have a teacher unpacking equipment, setting up, and moving equipment and setting up in a couple of other different spaces. Mr. Robinson's class is a unique class in that the decibel level of the class with the electric instrumentation does tend to get extremely loud, so it's not a matter that we really can't move that program down into the academic wing because of the noise level. So that was the thought process and that was the rationale, and that's how we ended up. I mean, we need everything everywhere. Later tonight, you'll see on the agenda a discussion about retaining architectural services to do master planning. And I know a number of years ago when there was a master plan that was created for the high school site, there was a thought that out in front of the stadium there would be a field house kind of construction which would include locker rooms and space for programs like wrestling where we could expand the practice space. In the way of some further clarification, that weight room was originally a weight room, and then when we got space challenged before the last edition, we did set up some health classes in that room in the off season. But that was originally, when the building was built in 2000, that was designated as the weight room. And actually, we did lose some space in that process. As I understand it, originally when the plans were built for the new high school, they hadn't included a shop area. And so there was square footage that originally was available for a bigger space. However, in the context of modifying the plan back during that time to make the space for the shop, both the performing arts and the athletic pieces of that end of the building lost square footage in order to support the creation of the shop.
Can I ask a couple clarifying questions for myself, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, so as I look, there's 4 possible solutions. Were there any other solutions that were discussed and maybe after some back and forth found that those really weren't viable solutions? Because if I'm reading what was presented to me correctly, the multi-purpose room, which to me is like the auxiliary gym, is workable but not ideal in the short term. It certainly probably is not a long-term solution. The cafeteria doesn't seem to be a very good short-term or long-term solution because of the glass walls and the padding and what have you. So that, of the 4 solutions, that one's probably not workable either way. The room that's adjacent to the current wrestling room and then build a pole barn somewhere on campus. I'm just asking, would a pole building be a viable long-term solution, or is that a short-term solution also?
It would be a long-term solution, however, we were asking for what we thought we would get the most.
Oh, if I were in your shoes, I'd shoot for the moon. That's what I would do.
We would love a whole wrestling edition built on.
Okay, now let's work back from that a little bit.
Okay, we've got the top, now let's work.
The whole barn would be the best choice, short-term and long-term, obviously.
Well, let me ask this question. You know, we talk about these different things, but I was just kind of more the number. In general, I guess, let me ask it this way. We're saying square feet, we show the square feet, the dimensions, and how many athletes, square foot per athlete. What is the average? I mean, how much room, how much room do you need? In other words, right now you're at 1,600 square feet. You just, you talked about the one option that gave you 91 square feet per child. I mean, what is the number? What is that number?
The state does not give a maximum square footage per athlete.
Right, but to run practices, I mean, you talked about Coach Kraft. Is he here?
He is here.
He is.
Okay, if you were going to build a pole building that would be a long-term solution to the wrestling conundrum, how big of a pole building would you want to build? That's
At
because
least 2 to 3 times what we have, at least.
So 4,500, 4,800 square feet?
Yeah.
So a 5,000 square foot building.
Yeah. But.
and in that would be locker facilities, rooms. I mean, what are we just talking about? A pole building with with,
mat in it, or?
with a concrete floor and walls that are padded and then where you,
I'm thinking.
paint a picture for me a little bit, please.
Well, as a business owner, I'm thinking the most you can get for the least amount of money.
Yep.
So that would simply come down to, you know, the district shouldn't spend a ton of money, I understand that. So it really, you know, it's all about safety, so.
If you had a pole barn the size you want, could it contain everything you want to do from, I mean, would the kids still need to shower and things here, or are you talking about a pole building that would have a locker room facility, a place to shower, a place to keep your mats?
Ideally, yes.
I'm thinking pole barn, and as I'm driving down the road and I see a farm with a pole barn, I'm thinking, okay, how do you use that as a wrestling facility? How do you use it in the winter? Does it need to be heated? Do the kids create enough heat in there that it doesn't?
Ideally, the barns I've been in, Short Christian, Covington, they have them, and they're almost perfect. You would be able to shower, have a locker room, have a coach's office. It's all in one building, but as soon as wrestling's over, baseball puts cages up and they use it.
Okay.
And then football can be in there for workouts. So that, as a school district, makes the absolute most sense.
And
So yes, absolutely. It would, if, right now we have 1,600 square feet, if it was at least 3 or 4 times that, that would be plenty of space, absolutely enough space.
So what's the
for
figure?
wrestling
What
area.
would be a figure amount of money?
There's
Well,
a
I had to figure
5,000
out
foot,
5,000
we have a
square foot.
5,000 square foot metal building that's sitting out between the baseball
I was thinking about that.
press boxes. We've got now that, we're using that for maintenance and storage of our equipment. That building costs $50,000. It has a concrete floor. Granted, it has a metal
Is there
structure.
plumbing in it?
It has plumbing in one corner and it has electric in one corner.
I know that the boosters have said that they would like to help take on a task. Are we talking about if we're knocking out a wall and using that music room, then, are the boosters still talking, if we decide that we want to move ahead with having a pole barn and create and it's a $50,000 or $75,000 or $100,000 pole barn, what's the booster's level of, commitment on a project? Because going from knocking out a wall and adding some pads to building a pole barn is,
Way different.
you take a pretty good leap across the abyss.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, knocking a wall out now and with the increasing numbers, that's not the permanent fix.
Well, exactly.
That is not gonna fix
Actually, it
things.
would be.
I mean, I think it would be, but we're never gonna have 75 wrestlers, we're just not. It's
Have
not-
we ever had more than 30? I don't know.
Maybe in the 80s, they have,
Before this school was
maybe
built,
in the
maybe.
80s.
No kidding.
I mean, that's when it was probably in its heyday
Yeah,
here
I didn't know that.
until now.
So that, the room, if I'm hearing correctly, the wrestling room as it exists now, and the room that's connected to it, regardless of whether or not that's feasible or not feasible, you feel like that room, that space creates a long-term permanent solution, and in 5 years or 6 years from now, the wrestling program would not have outgrown those 2 spaces. That's enough to house the wrestling program for the long term?
Yes.
And if that were to be the case, how many wrestlers would you need to have before you go, okay, that's just not gonna be enough space? We're talking 40 or 50?
50.
If you have 50 kids, then you're starting to get a little bit crowded in that
Yeah,
space.
Yeah, and 50 wrestlers at a Division I school, that's a lot.
Do the junior high kids come over here and practice here also? Is that my understanding of that?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
That was the plan, it's been an idea.
Where do those kids practice now?
The junior high cafeteria.
Okay, so they pull mats out every day, set mats up,
Yes.
practice there, and then they put the mats away
Yes.
before they leave.
Which that has been a problem as well. I mean, that's not an ideal situation over there. It's been, I mean, Ernie can attest to that. He was our coach when we were at the junior high. That's a nightmare, coming from many directions.
Those are my questions, but I would say I appreciate everybody coming tonight, to see, I know it creates issues and I know it creates challenges, but I would rather sit here and have to find solutions to challenges because we have too many kids participating in something and we need more space than us have to sit here and go, man, we need to take that wrestling room because there's only 5 kids who are right on the wrestling team and we need that for classroom space. So I would rather be on the side of the coin that we are now. And I would just ask that as we work through some of these challenges, as we turn the corner and continue to grow our athletic programs, that we try to work together as best as we can to find long-term solutions that are viable so that we can keep good coaches, keep growing our programs, and give our kids the best opportunity to compete. So I want to say thank you for everybody who came
Yes.
tonight. I
Very
appreciate
nice,
it.
thank you for coming.
We'll have to talk about this.
Sometime back, we had a conversation when we were discussing the weight room. And we were talking about one of the ideas that came out is that we take the wrestling room and add that to the weight room. Remember that? And then we were talking about moving the wrestling down to some other room.
It was the room down here by the cafeteria, which is, it's a rectangular room. It's a double classroom right now that's used for
Is
study.
it bigger or smaller than?
It's this room. The
Room we
square
have
footage is about,
executive session.
it's about 1,400 and some odd square feet.
Okay, so it's smaller than the current? room.
Right,
Okay,
right.
okay.
The current wrestling room is square, and this one would be, the one up here is more rectangular.
Right.
Well, I don't know that we can answer your question tonight. One of the things we would want to do is talk with Mr. Power, also talk with the administration of the building to see, because Mr. Power brings up a good point with the district scheduling.
And we can look at the logistics of that. My concern was when you start having to move this teacher around, and set up and break down, we're also talking about then what kids signed up, what bells, and am I gonna have to start changing student schedules if we're gonna move this direction?
So that would be what we would want to look at before we had any kind of thoughts or ideas. So, yes, sir.
It's just a question, you may not have an answer to it, but Mr. Robinson's class is not new. And when there was a weight room there and a shop and the wrestling room, where was that class held?
Actually, Mr. Robinson's class, I think this coming up is the 3rd year, so it is,
It is
he had it for one bell, and it was set up over in the band room, but he has multiple sections now as the program has grown.
Yeah, the program has
over the last
grown and
2
it's
years.
gotten bigger, so that's why it's a newer, yeah.
I don't know if this will even work, or if even Chad and Josh would even be, behind it, I don't know, I'm just thinking about that space. What if it was, because it's used during the school day, clearly, the wrestling is after school. Is there a possibility that this, the wrestling room stays as it is, and we have some kind of a divider? The wall comes down. Obviously we want the classroom to be appropriate for what, Ms. Robinson's gonna have in there, but could it be a dual purpose area? Our concern always, I know Chad's biggest concern, especially with, that room use during the day, the biggest complaint we've had is other people use that wrestling room during the day and the mats just get destroyed. And as you know, they're $10,000 a pop. And they get tears in them, they get liquid in them. Now we've got MRSA, now we've got staff, whatnot. So you want to keep the integrity of the mat. So if we can somehow maintain that so that people are not going in there during the day with gym shoes on or whatnot, is it possible that that room could be a dual purpose room for the foreseeable future with some kind of a divider, not a permanent divider, think about when you
That
go
would
to a
roll
hotel
down from the
conference room,
ceiling,
some kind of
maybe
divider.
roll down from the ceiling, maybe a divider that would roll down
Yeah,
from the ceiling.
just something that could, be maintained, during the day, and that, you don't wanna roll mats out every day, you just don't, for many reasons, but maybe that's a possibility.
How many mats can you put in that room that is Mr. Robinson's room? And let me go back and backtrack. How many mats do you have set up with circles in the room that you have now? I'm sorry?
9.
9? And how many more could you get into that space that is the classroom space, the old weight room?
At least 8.
You could get 8 more
Yes.
in that room? Okay.
Would it be possible, as we're looking to this next school year, to assure the athletes that there's going to be something put in place that is going to make it a safer area in which they can practice?
I don't know that we could make an assurance or give you a guarantee. What I can tell you, this board has always approached things from the standpoint, if there is a safety issue, and I know the administration feels the same way, if there's a safety issue and it's brought to our attention, sometimes things are never brought to our attention, something happens and we go, well, we didn't know anything about it, but everything that has ever been brought to our attention, especially from a safety issue, we have addressed. May not have been the way that we've been asked to address it, but we've done the best we can for the school district and all stakeholders involved. So I don't know that I could give you a guarantee for next year. What I can tell you is that we are interested in seeing all programs grow. There's, I don't think anyone up here has a pet program that, we want this one to go and the other ones we don't care about. And this is a good problem to have, as Mr. Nemish mentioned earlier. But we are in space constraints, I will tell you that. We have more and more kids coming every year. We're doing a realignment this coming year because of the amount of growth that we're having in the school system. So I would not feel comfortable telling you that, oh yes, I guarantee you we can do A, B, and C. But what I can tell you is that we will address the problem and do our best to make it as safe or safer than what you currently have.
I can tell you that Mr. Power was not aware of the injury that was the severe injury that was suffered. I'm not sure why he was not made aware of that, but he was not made aware of that until I called to get on the agenda.
Okay.
I was aware there had been an injury, but I wasn't aware of the severity.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank everybody for coming. We
Thank you for
appreciate it. We
coming.
really do.